Hey, it's Fitz, and if you don't know who I am, here's a quick bio. I'm a veteran sports journalist who writes, does TV, radio, daily YouTube videos, and I'm a longtime podcaster. Also, I have metastatic stage 4 prostate cancer that came out of remission in 2023. During the pandemic, my doctors advised me to stay at home, and the Life of Fitz podcast was born. 5 years later, I'm back in my cancer battle and continuing this podcast with season 6. As I call the many people I've met through my 35 years in sports journalism, and those who are involved in my cancer journey. Plus, we'll add in a few friends we've met along the way who are facing their own obstacles in life. Welcome to my life and the Life of Fitz podcast. Presented by the great people at Blueville Nursery in Manhattan. Chris Klieman is getting ready to enter his 7th season as Kansas State's head football coach. And it's been a pretty fun ride so far for Coach Klieman and Wildcat fans. Out of those first 6 seasons, he's gone to 5 bowl games. He's won a Big 12 championship, and heck, over the last 3 seasons, he's won 9 or more games every year with that title in the conference coming in 2022. 23 and 24 seasons saw bowl victories. Yeah, it's been a fun ride, but as he prepares for season 7, it seems like Kansas State football might be poised for something more. He's got a bright young quarterback, a lot of playmakers, and honestly, a defense that could be among K-State's best in a very long time. We'll see how it plays out, but one thing is for certain. When he took over for Bill Snyder in 2019, the job was much different than it is today, and honestly, he struggles with it. It's more like a NFL general manager in many ways. You now have salaries and players to cut and many things that honestly coaches didn't sign up for, but here we are. So as we kick off season 6 of Life of Fitz, we turn to Chris Klieman. He was only on a couple of years ago, but his entire job in the state of college football feels so much different now. So let's get to it. Welcome to season 6 of Life of Fitz. And here we go with Chris Klieman in Manhattan, Kansas. And now we welcome in my friend, the football coach at Kansas State, Chris Klieman. Coach Cly, how are you?
Fitz, it is the middle of May, and so we're kind of trying to catch a little bit of a break before the sprint of a summer comes upon us. So I'm doing well.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's start there. That's a perfect place. Over the last 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is since NIL and portal made its appearance, how much has a head football coach's schedule changed?
Oh, drastically. And I think that's probably one of the frustrating things for all of us coaches is it's less football. You know, it's not me sitting with the offense or defensive staff for as long a periods of time. I may get an hour on each side of the ball. During the spring, that's the biggest time. During the spring, you don't get a whole lot. And then I've been a part of some committees, so I've been on different Zooms and was gone for a little while. And so you don't get a chance to stay probably on top of all the recruiting world that our guys are out on the road with, to some of the summer projects of breaking down teams and stuff, things that I love to do. But really in the last 2 years, I haven't done much of that, not as much as I would like to.
Yeah, it's amazing all the stuff that has been piled on coaches' plates that make you function more as a NFL general manager than a coach.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I hired Clint to be our general manager here, to take a lot of those things off my plate. And I think that'll continue to evolve and get better and better once it strictly goes to revenue share. With the NIL piece of it right now, as well as revenue share, it's kind of all hands on deck, with myself helping Clint and some other people helping him as well. That's kind of taken all of our time right now. That and obviously going out and raising money that you always do as a coach. I mean, you're always a part of fundraising. That's part of, I think, part of a head coach's job, just like it's part of an athletic director's job on fundraising. It's just become more and more a part of it on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to go out and fundraise for a new locker room or stadium, but for just straight up money is a different thing. But Clint Brown's been maybe that's too strong, a godsend for you.
Yeah.
It's kind of a new position that's popped up in college athletics to manage all this, which is silly that you have to have a person in charge of
Mm-hmm.
roster slash salary management, all that stuff. But what has he meant for your program, but also for you to take some
Mm-hmm.
of this off of you?
Yeah. Clint and I've been colleagues for a while. We competed against each other. We've been peers. I was the head coach at North Dakota State. He was the defensive coordinator at South Dakota State. We competed there. I was even competing when I was the D coordinator there. So I've known him for a long time. And then he was actually the first the first guy to give Devin a break in the coaching profession because Clint was down at Abilene Christian and hired Devin down there when he fresh out of college. And then we had an opening here and we're able to bring Dev back. But we hired Clint a few years ago as an analyst, helping Colin Klein on that side of the ball, and was great for us. And he did that for a couple of years. And then this position started to become overwhelming for a head coach. And I was able to convince our administration that we've got to find somebody that can do this and take some of this off my plate. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I had some feelers out there, some NFL guys, and then Clint came to me and said, "I'm really interested in this because I need to advance my career." I don't think he thought it was going to go where it is even now. As far as, yeah, I'll do some roster stuff. I'll help with a little bit of NIL here and there, and all of a sudden it just blew up. And we're really probably a little bit understaffed there. Clint needs an assistant. That person needs an assistant, but you can't keep hiring. You have to find a way to make sure that you're financially structured correctly, because a lot of that extra money's got to go to the players. And so Clint's taken on a ton, and he's been everything to me. And I know this. It's been an impact on our players having conversations with him, because he's been in the weight room for an entire semester when we were down a strength staff. So he's got that rapport with the guys. He was an analyst before they were allowed to coach. Then he was an analyst when they were allowed to coach. So he's been on the field with these guys. So when they come in and ask for something, or an agent asks for something, and Clint's seen all sides of it, he's been great because he's really honest with the guys.
There was all these added duties. There was a large professional price in terms of what you paid to take all this on, a lot more work. But personally, how did it impact you? It's we forget coaches are people too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we do forget about that, don't we?
Yeah, they do. People do. But it had to be a huge weight on you and the family.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that my children are out of the house. And my last one's going to graduate on Saturday from college. So that's exciting news for us. But no, it's taken its toll for sure. And just not as many times where you can say, "Hey, let's get away." And even if it's for a short weekend
Yeah.
or a couple of days in the summer, it always gets interrupted. And spring break, it's interrupted. Our little time in February, it's always, I mean, there's never a day where you're not at least on 3 or 4 calls. I mean, there's never a day where I'm not on 3 or 4 calls. It doesn't matter where I'm at. Doesn't matter. There is no such thing as vacation. And I've got the best wife in the world that's been with me when I was a graduate assistant, when I was a full-time coach at Western Illinois, making $15,000 a year. So she's been with me. She's been my rock, and we've kind of done it together. That and I've got a guy in this profession that helps our players in Ben Newman. That's, I think, the best in the world at what he does in performance coach. But he's also a life coach to me, and he's helped me immensely through some struggles.
How did that relationship develop?
2014, we had just won the national championship, and a guy that played for us at North Dakota State had run across Ben and said, "I think I'd be a guy. I think you should visit with Coach. He's kind of new to the performance coach standpoint, but he's really good." Heard him speak one place, and then he brought him in, so it was a tie to us. Craig Dahl was the guy's name that brought him into NDSU, and Craig he was a former player, and Ben and I just hit it off. I mean, we absolutely hit it off, and you're always looking for an edge as a coach. you're always looking for maybe a different voice with the same messaging and maybe a different tone, a bit different way of doing things. And I'm, just like everybody else, you're cognizant about who you're bringing into your program and being in front of your team. But I knew this guy was going to be a hit with our guys, and every year he's become more and more a part of our program. And he's at every game. He's here. I think 4 other times off season to be with our guys. He sends texts out to him, takes phone calls from him, does a little bit of everything. But we always have a joke. He comes into town and he stays with the Klymans, and Rhonda has a spot for him all the time. And we've let him live rent free at the house, and so he's given back to me in some other ways. So it's pretty fun.
That's interesting. It's the same for you. When friends come to town for football, they stay with you.
Yep.
That's what we should just rent out the room to my buddy Ron. It was a weird year for you, wasn't it? You had personal stuff overlap, football stuff, and
Yeah.
as a friend, I could tell it just wore you down.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's one of those things where you try to internalize everything, and you hit it on the head. We're still humans too, and we're still people too, that we deal with some different things in our personal life. And it was a struggle. It was a family issue that was a real struggle. It's still a little bit of a struggle, but we're managing much better right now, and we understand what we're managing. So, but I tell you, you grow no matter what. And for me, my job's not going to stop. I'm not going to say, well, I need a week. I need 3 days. It's in the middle of the season. You don't have that time. So leaned on the people that are in this building, leaned on my wife, leaned on family. But no, I mean, that's every year. You hope you don't have what I had from a family health status, but every year you go through different trials and tribulations and adversities. But I think it's what makes us stronger on the other end of it. It's what makes us appreciate the special times. It makes us appreciate family. It makes us appreciate the people that. Hey, we've got coaches up here and support staff up here that spend an awful lot of time up here that pour their whole life into K-State football. And I'm fortunate because I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that I really care about, that I hope I treat really well, so that they know that when I took a job as a head coach, as an assistant, I always said, well, I'm a lifetime assistant. I got a chance to be a head coach, and I never want to change. And Connor Riley's kind of my sounding board on a lot of things, because Rouse was with me as an assistant before I even became a coordinator and stuff. And I'm always like, Rouse, make sure I don't change. Make sure that I'm still the guy that is the assistant that can have fun with. Yeah, I've got to make some tough decisions that may be not popular for everybody, but it's in the best interest of the football team. And so I've tried to kind of live by that mantra of I just want to be one of the guys.
Yeah. And it's gotten challenging. You had to make cuts. Maybe you didn't have to make them. That's a whole other topic. But again, that's a professional general manager duty. And here you are having to do it. It's hard to be the good guy when you're telling people they got to go.
Yeah. That was one of the worst couple of days in my coaching profession. And I'll tell you why, Fitz. Everybody sees it as a number to go down to. We got to get to 105. Whether you're at 110 and we had to move 4 guys on, or at 125 like we were to move 20 guys on, this isn't the NFL where, okay, you brought him into training camp that didn't work out. You see it on Hard Knocks. You hand the playbook in, you give a quick hug, and best of luck, you're going to make it in this league. And I think a lot of people saw those kids as numbers from 125 to 105. No, they're not. They're kids that are going to college, that are getting their degree, that most of them hadn't maybe seen the field a ton, maybe a little bit on special teams. And so, man, I got some scars left from that, because it's talking to a kid that I sat in my couch with here to say, you know what, you're going to get a great education here, and you're going to get life lessons on how to become a man, and leadership skills and community service skills. And now I've just got to stop that. So some of these kids have invested 4 and 5 years. Some had only invested a year. It wasn't easy either way, but I looked at those guys as people in the outside world saw those guys as numbers. getting down to 105. And I saw it in a different perspective. I saw family members as I'm looking in those kids' eyes, and it just was miserable.
I don't care if it's North Dakota State, Boise State, Louisiana State, or Kansas State. At the end of the day, a lot of kids grow up wanting to play for that team.
Yep.
It's their childhood dream. Knowing that they're good football players, but probably not good enough for a scholarship, the walk-on ability made dreams come true.
Yeah.
And made stars. Yep. I mean, no one exemplifies that more, no program, than Kansas State, with the long list of former walk-ons who went on to college and NFL stardom. It saddens me that that's ending. Yeah. That is such a cool part of college athletics. And it's not totally ending, but the dramatic stories, the Felix Anudike-Uzamas or Brendan Motts, who look like no way they're college football players when they show up in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Neither one of them. And leave with NFL bodies, all Big 12 defensive linemen. They're incredible stories. But in reality, at 105, those guys don't even get the chance to start that journey.
No. And I don't know, does Jordy Nelson, do some of those guys before I got here that were walk-ons? Ben Sennett was 205 pounds when he showed up here. It's hurting all programs. It's not just hurting Kansas State. It's hurting all developmental programs that bring guys in. It takes 2 or 3 years to get a kid ready to play in certain positions, D-line and O-line in particular. You look at, I think every center that I've had here has been a walk-on. Noah Johnson, probably would have to move Noah on. Hayden Gillum, I would have to move Hayden Gillum on. Sam Hecht, walk-on. I may have to move. All those guys are some of the best players and some of the best leaders we've had here. And so, it's, I hope that we're not done with this though, Fitz. I hope the grandfathering, and nobody knows what that means. And that's the sad thing, is we're in the middle of May and still nobody knows what their roster size is going to be. And some of these guys got to move on. Some of them have to, they've got decisions. I've got a scholarship at Division II or FCS. Do I take it, or do I wait for this crazy settlement to come through? And you're like, make sure you're on a roster. Make sure you're having a chance to play. But I'm hoping people see this, and then slowly we start to build that number back up, because people are going to find out, if you have a roster of 105 and we do not institute a 5-for-5 playing rules and years of competition, somebody will have to bail out of a bowl game this year. You wait and see, because of the multitude of injuries, the kids that opt out, the kids that maybe decide they're going to leave whenever that transfer portal is, the kids that, just said, hey, I've had enough. There'll be some school that has to bail out of a bowl game. And we're going to look back at this and say, if we would have not gone to 105, we'd be able to play that bowl game and not cause, there's going to be a lot of embarrassment. I hope it's not us, but there's going to be a lot of embarrassment for a program, and it's going to be on the NCAA. It's going to be on the House settlement. It's going to be on people that decided to let this thing go through.
I honestly don't understand the purpose of this. I know that the judge ruled you can't limit a school to offering scholarships, which I find outlandish.
Yeah.
And so the NCAA said, okay, we'll limit the roster size, not the scholarship size. I get that, but it still feels completely unnecessary.
Yeah. And Fitz, the other thing is, not everybody's going to be able to be put on scholarship. Even if we have 105, not all those kids are going to be on scholarship. And the other thing that people assume, but is dead wrong, is not every kid's on revenue sharing. You can't take 105 guys and say we're all going to get, let's say it's $105 we get and everybody gets $1. Well, everybody knows Avery's going to get a couple more dollars than somebody else. So you can't give everybody something. And so pretty soon that money runs out. So there's kids that are walk-ons, not on revenue sharing, that are going to be on our roster, just like they're going to be on everybody else's roster. What's the problem with adding 10 more of those kids, 15 more of those kids? That I don't know of a league that's going to go to 105 full scholarships. I know there's talk about it, but if they do it, it's probably going to last a year, and then they're going to realize financially they can't do it.
For me, this is the epitome of unintended consequences. The people that brought this suit were looking for more opportunity in, Olympic sports, so to speak. And now they've wiped out opportunities.
Yeah.
It's the irony here is rich, but that's what happens sometimes when you delve into it. In fact, I think most of college athletics right now is the rule of unintended consequences. A lot of stuff comes out of these decisions. But this this continues to bend college athletics to look more like professional sports. And there's talk of employment, which I know the athletic departments don't want, but might need for protection. A union. Dude, I just want to cover college football.
Yeah.
And you just want to coach.
Yeah.
It's
This cannot get under control until we have collective bargaining,
right.
until we get Congress involved, and until we get a commissioner of college football. And Fitz, I don't see any of those things happening in my lifetime. And I'll be 58 years old this
God,
fall.
you're
I
old.
don't know how long I'm going to coach, but if
That's
it's
old.
10 years, this isn't happening in the next 10 years.
It's got to, or
I
I'm
agree.
afraid the game won't be around.
You're probably right.
I mean, it'll be around, but essentially, this is where I think we're headed.
Mm-hmm.
Universities will lend their brand to a private company to run the football program or basketball program, kind of a private equity type thing.
And
Dude,
then
that's sports.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's where I'm so afraid of it, in the fact of no different than NIL and rev sharing, and this is the next piece of it. You don't want to have ownership where a kid is getting X amount of dollars, and if we don't bench that kid, or if we don't play that kid, or if that kid doesn't get more touches, then I'm pulling my money. Just no different than the coaching side of things. If that guy doesn't win, then I'm gonna take my money and run, or you're gonna fire him. That's already happening in the coaching world. We know that. That's gonna start happening in the player world. Wait a minute, I paid for this guy and he's not performing, or I paid for this guy and he's not playing as much. Why? We have to answer for that now as coaches. And maybe he's not ready. Maybe there's somebody a little bit better that these aren't professional athletes. They're 18 to 22-year-olds that develop at a different rate. How do we answer that? Because I'm a little bit afraid of that private equity group coming in and saying, "Hey, Chris, you're playing Tim Fitzgerald at wide receiver today." Well, but Tim's not ready to play. He's slow. He has no ability to catch the football. Nope, but we're paying him the most money. He has to play. That's what it's going to come down to.
I'm all in on the plan where I get paid and then aren't good enough to
They don't have to play.
Yeah. If I could get out of practice too, that'd be fantastic. How much has it stolen the joy of coaching for you?
It's interesting you say that. It has stolen a lot of it when I'm not with the players. When I'm with the players, I'm sitting in the QB room with Matt Wells, throwing my 2 cents at the QBs about something that I see from a defense perspective. When I'm in with Klanderman and I throw my 2 cents in about what I'm seeing from an offense perspective. I'm out on the field and I'm talking to a wide receiver about how he should set up this route on a DB. I'm talking to a linebacker in how he should make a blitz move on. Those are the things that are the most fun things for me. The problem is that they're 2.5 hours on the practice field, and there's an hour meeting here and there. But then all of a sudden I'll be in a meeting with the coaches, having a great time, just doing what you like to do, of designing game plans and schemes. And all of a sudden, hey, coach, I need you. And that "I need you" is never 5 minutes. That "I need you" is sometimes the rest of the morning or the rest of the afternoon. Next thing you know, you're at practice. I think every coach would be kidding themselves if they said that hasn't stolen a little bit of joy out of what they're doing. Everybody loves what we do on Saturdays. Everybody loves what we do between the lines at practice and meeting with the players and talking ball. I don't know if any of us that really enjoy, whether it's the negotiation side of it, the raising money for not a facility, but for revenue share and playing, as well as not knowing what your roster is, not knowing any of that, not knowing how many years a kid has. I really don't. We bring kids in and I'm like, "How many years you got left?" He goes, "Well, I was at this academy school, then I went to a JC, and then I transferred." I said, "I have no idea what you have. You could have 2, you could have 4. None of us know." That's the next thing that, until this house settlement's done, nothing is getting done. Nothing is getting done in the NCAA. Nothing is getting done in the college athletics world until this gets done. And for us, everybody's like, "Well, we got to decide the transfer portal window." Yep, that's important. We got to decide the calendar. Yep, that's important. One of the first things we need to do in football is get the 5 for 5 passed. Get 5 for 5 passed. so that nobody has to worry about that kid coming in October after game 4 saying, you know what, I'm going to sit out this rest of this year so I can go transfer, or I'm going to sit out this rest of this year so I can uh, make sure I get a full year. Nobody has to worry about the fact that I played a year at JC, then I transferred, and then I didn't play that fall, and then I transferred again, because that stuff's never going to change. Just give them 5 years. If you have we're benefiting this year. Taylor Poite is going to be in year 7, my first recruiting class in 2019. And that kid's going to play his 7th year. And I love it because TP deserves it. But I think TP would even tell you, man, if they had it as 5 for 5, he'd be like, dang it, I lost that year. Because, there's not as many of those stories of TP where he had 2 ACLs.
Yeah. And that's the thing. 5 for 5 solves a lot of problems. It makes life easier for the NCAA.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about so many different appeals and, trying to get back a year here or there, except for injuries. And,
Yep.
if there's a legitimate injury, you should get back a year. It's unfortunate when you've had a couple kids blow out both knees. That's quite the feat, by the way. And, not to get back both years would suck, but there has to be a limit. There has to be rules.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're getting away from any form of structure for football programs. Oh, you played at junior college? That doesn't count. Oh, you played Division II? Maybe that doesn't count.
Yeah.
It just, none of this makes sense to me. It's just
doesn't make sense to any of us.
I don't know how it's a legal thing either. I don't get it.
No, we need, like I said, we need Congress, we need Washington to get involved with some of the things. We need commissioner, we need collective bargaining, all that stuff. But I don't know how it's going to get organized.
Who should be commissioner? I'm not. I'll be blunt with you. I'm not in favor of Nick Saban. I'm not in favor of a coach. You got to find someone that hasn't been on one side of this thing, but someone that can be down the middle.
Yeah. I don't have a name, but we need somebody to get involved that can tie in, that can tie in the commissioners and the athletic directors. There's too many committees going on right now that don't include the practitioners, the coaches. There's too many committees that they decide things from a calendar or from spring ball or from a transfer portal, and they have a lot of different voices, but they don't have the most important voice in my mind. And once again, I'm biased, of the coaches that are on the grass with these kids. It's like, we've even talked about the 8-hour rule, the 20-hour rule of when you can have guys and stuff around. Unless we change the model, a lot of kids have online classes. That's the other thing. A lot of kids have online classes, so they're spending time around the office anyway. And if we want less transfers, let them spend as much time around the office as they want, so they can continue to build relationships. And so that this could be an all day podcast if we wanted to talk about those things.
I feel like it's the equivalent of me deciding to build a house, but I'm not going to hire an architect that knows how to build a house. I'm going to wing it. It's kind of what they're doing.
And we don't have a window where everybody can get together. That's the issue. The transfer portal window was decided on in August through our coaching association that we would like to have one window. And then in October, a different committee said, no, we got to have 2 windows. I promise you, there wasn't one football coach that was a part of that committee in the middle of October, let alone the one in August.
It's insanity. It really is. Let's take a short break and hear from our sponsor, Blueville Nursery.
For competitively priced landscape design, irrigation, and lawn maintenance, turn to Blueville Nursery, a family-owned business with more than 50 years of experience. You can trust the Blueville team to design and create a landscape that will accentuate your property's aesthetics. And visit our garden store 6 days a week for the best products in the area. From ornamental trees, shrubs, and flowers, Blueville has it all. Blueville Nursery, located on West Anderson Avenue in Manhattan, Kansas.
Now, let's return to the studio. Switching over to the Ireland trip, how did that come about?
It's been a long time now. I mean, it's been 15, 16 months, I'm guessing. John Anthony, I know that from Anthony Travel, reached out to Gene. And then Gene brought it up to me. And once again, like 15 months prior to it, I'm like, 2025, shoot, that's forever. I'm interested, but let me do some investigating, and called some coaches, and visit with our staff up here a little bit. And um, I know there's never a great thing, meaning we're going to give up a home game. We're going to give up some of the things from the local economy and stuff. But I tried to take off my Kansas State head football coach cap and say, okay, if we did this, um, how cool would it be for our kids to go abroad that may never do this again? I went only because Ron and I and Gene and Kathy were invited to go to learn about the game, and to have some media stuff in February. If not, I probably still wouldn't go. And then the other thing that as 15 months ago, I think people started to see the Big Ten and SEC wanting to continue to kind of cannibalize everybody else and make it a two league world. And I thought if we could be a showcase game for our league, and I knew Iowa State was going to be the team. I thought it'd be two great teams to showcase the league, because they have great fan bases. They're going to travel in droves, and really good programs that are always in the conversation. And so, more we talked about it, the more it seemed like the right thing to do, as much as anything. Now that we're a couple months out of it, logistically, Casey Feldkamp's the best director of ops person in the country. It's a lot. I know it is. It's an awful lot for her, and we're trying to help her as much as we can. I can't thank her enough for doing what she's doing, because I know how hard it is. Um, and once we get through that trip, I think the biggest thing for us is, and this is what we're doing right now, this month of May. How do we navigate the rest of the season? Not just how you navigate getting home. It's not like you're going to get home and then go practice. How do we navigate the next month before we have an open week?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you come home and it's game week.
Yep.
It's crazy. Honestly, I was a little surprised you didn't try to move that game because of that. But you could have done it for me too. I mean, that'd be
Yeah, and I probably should have thought about you more. Most of the time I do. I do think about you before I make decisions, but this one I didn't. And I guess the biggest reason that we didn't was talking to the amount of coaches that we did, that either had a game or didn't have a game. All of them said have a game,
interesting.
because here's and one of the greatest things that somebody told me was, think of the mistakes you make in game one. Nobody wants to make mistakes in game one, but you're making mistakes in game one, and it happens to be a Big 12 game. Okay, that's something that happens. Then you're going to come home and take 13 days off before you play again. Then you're going to have the same game one mistakes, and now it's game three before you start finally get into a routine. And even though, and we'll be smart with our team of what we do when we get back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And some guys say it's the third game, it's the fourth game. It's going to be a factor. So we have to do a great job, and that's one of the things that I've been most proud of that we've done here in the last 3 or 4 years is develop a team of what we call the optimal performance team, with sports science people, nutrition, athletic training, myself, and we get together and come up with a great plan for the student athletes.
When you and Rhonda and the Taylors went over there on kind of the investigative thing,
Yeah.
did you get any personal time to do? Ireland's cool. I've never
Yeah.
been there. That's where my entire family's from, basically. But it's a beautiful place. It's
Yep.
otherworldly in many ways. Did you
Yeah.
get any time to explore?
That was why we did that,
Good.
is because if not, we're going to fly in on Wednesday, get there Thursday, and it's game mode, and I'm not even going to know if we're at the Hilton Garden Inn in Manhattan, or we're at someplace in Ireland. So we got a number of tours, got to see the city, spent some time logistically at the hotel and at the game, went out to um, uh, an outer area by the Irish Sea. I think it's called Hoth, and spent a day out there. Went, as you'd appreciate, on a Guinness tour and a Teeling whiskey tour, which were really cool things for me to just, as well as just walk in the city. it's neat. Nobody knew who the heck we were.
It's
So that
awesome.
was really good. Other than we were with, the mayor, we were with other people. So they knew we must have been important because of the people we were hanging out with. But I thought it was a lot of fun just to see that culture and experience it. And it was, I'm glad I did it. It was a 5-day trip, but I'm glad I did it.
Is it true the Guinness is better over there?
100%.
That's wild.
100%. It is. Um, and I still not having a bunch in a setting. It's not that tight, but boy, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, one might be my limit on
Yep.
that. But if it's really good, you know me,
You
I'll
might have
sacrifice
to
and
have
have
two.
seven.
The thing about it is, and it's not like you're saying, I'll have a small one or I'll have the large one. It comes in one size and it's plenty.
Yeah. That's
You can't have a half.
yeah. No, you get kicked out of the country. You are
Exactly
deported from
right.
Ireland for having half a
Yep.
Guinness.
Yep.
Those are my people. I agree with them. We're going to go over for a week. We wish it was 2, but there's football. It's football season.
Yeah,
The same thing. It's like
No.
I'd love to go over way early, but we'll have press conference and everything leading up. In fact, I'll miss the first. If we have a Monday press conference, I'll be gone.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Gilbert, it'll be a great press conference for you.
Yeah, it will be a really nice one. Maybe I'll make sure and schedule it on Monday now. We just got to make sure that the players and the staff and people know this isn't the rate bowl. We're not going over there and we have it we have our itinerary, as much to the minute as we can, and it's pretty tight and it's pretty strict because it's the first game. It's a Big 12 game, and oh, by the way, we've got 11 more after this. That we're going to do a couple of things for our guys that are going to be cultural, that are going to be cool. But then come Friday, man, we're going to lock it down and then get ready for a game.
It's a really good opponent too. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say it gives you troubles, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And but I don't think they were going to do it had we had North Dakota go over there.
Yeah.
I think it had to be a really good opponent. And I don't know how that came about. I know that maybe Gene mentioned a few schools that maybe would be a great opponent where you knew you were going to get the travel part of it too, and get people to go.
Well, it's really exciting. I think both fan bases are going to enjoy it. I feel badly for Dublin. I mean, it'll be an invasion of Busch Light drinkers, Bud Light drinkers, and
well, here's what I learned in the 5 days I were over with. I think they can hold their own pretty well.
Yeah,
the people of Dublin might drink us under the table.
It's a proud heritage. There's a reason why we celebrate Irishness every year. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. It's a cool experience for the players and the coaches and everyone who gets to play on such a massive international stage, because you're the only show in the world in college football that day. I look at this as it's really cool for the fans and the players and all that. And it's huge for the two brands of Iowa State and Kansas State football, as you mentioned. It's huge for the Big 12 brand, as you also discussed. This is an opportunity for the Big 12 to show this is really fun, entertaining, well-played football. There's not as many blowouts in this conference. There's a lot more parity in this conference. And Iowa State and Kansas State play really good physical football, because I think the whole media narrative out there has created this illusion that these teams just aren't as good as everyone else. And that's just simply not true. Are teams in the Big 12 as good as Ohio State and Georgia right now? No. The financial resources aren't there.
No.
But the overall football is really good and competitive with most schools in those conferences. Who are also not competitive with Ohio State and Georgia. So I'm excited for it for the conference. The conference needs this right now.
Absolutely.
You've going back to this whole stress thing. Has this shortened your career possibly?
I don't know. I never really think about that. I always am excited to start a season. I'm always excited for the challenge, the chess match of getting a team to play at its peak, to play at its highest level, to not have roller coasters and that stuff. And I love that aspect of this game. I think all of us that are my age in their mid 50s would say we all hope that it does get adjusted and gets somewhat under control so that we can go into our 60s. If you're in your 30s or 40s, man, you better friggin' figure out how this is going to work and adapt and adjust or go to the NFL. And I've had a lot of buddies that gone to the NFL. I'm not going to the NFL, in my mid 50s. There's not a lot of us in my demographics that are probably doing that right now, unless you're at the upper echelon of it. And so we've got to find some ways so that we don't lose a bunch of coaches. And I think time will tell. I mean, once again, I'm excited about our team this year. I think we have a really good team coming back. We've got to address some concerns and issues, but other than the walk-ons, I know who our team is, and so nobody's really leaving you probably in June now. So I'm excited about it, but I can't answer that question, Fitz.
Yeah. One more on that though. Going to the NFL, how cool is it to see your friend Connor Riley get an opportunity to be the offensive line coach at the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, that was special. And, I think people thought it was just kind of coach speak that for year after year, I said he's the best offensive line coach in college football. And I love Riles, dear friend of mine, competed with him for friggin' 12 years on the same staff. And we didn't always agree on things, which is great because we could use each other as sounding boards and know it was never personal or anything. We always loved each other and stuff. But when he called me and said, I've got an opportunity to go to the Dallas Cowboys and coach offensive line, the natural thing I said, oh, to be the assistant O-line coach. And he said, no, coach, to be the offensive line coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I was like, Riles, what can I do to help you? You have to get this job. I mean, this is the coolest thing. And that's the thing that we've had a really good friend of mine that was at Iowa State last year, that was on my staff at North Dakota State, Tyler Roll, got the running backs, tight ends job. I can't remember which one it was with the Detroit Lions this offseason. So those guys are going into a setting where they're running their own room. And they're both at that age that I think it's a great time to do it. But you're seeing more and more people in their 30s and 40s that are from an assistant standpoint, making that jump. Now, if Ryan Day or Brian Kelly or Dabo or somebody wants to make that jump in a head coaching realm, that something that may happen sometime. But from the assistant's point of view, to get that opportunity, I think is really special.
Yeah, it's really cool. But you move on. I think the measurement of a leader's success when they have a team isn't how they assemble that team. It's how they replace the members of that team. And you've got to always be thinking about, well, I don't want to think about Riles leaving or Joe Klanderman leaving, but what if it's kind of there all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. I hope it's a strength that I have. I hope it's something that I'm always trying to play a step ahead, which I like to think I'm trying to do that, but then you get pulled back and doing something else. So then, you have to re-strategize and get your stuff. Here's the thing and it happened with all the way back to Scotty Hazelton to Joe Klanderman to Colin to Connor to Wells to now our strength job, losing True and hiring Ray Thomas. I believe our culture is really good. I believe our culture is really strong. And the reason it's strong is the relationships that all of us, coaches, support staff, have made with these young men and the trust that these guys have in us and we have in the players and the belief in that stuff. If I just wholesale change and say, okay, Riles left, let's go hire somebody as the offensive coordinator and let this guy bring the whole staff in, what would I be saying to my players?
Right.
The players would be, Coach, you never really believed in any of this stuff we were doing. No different. When Coach True left, I had it I knew we weren't going to keep True forever. I knew we weren't going to keep Rouse forever. I understand. You know when you have somebody really good in your program. You just know you do. And so I was always kind of observing and stuff, and I'm like, man, a year and a half ago, this Ray Thomas is a rising star in the strength profession. And so when we lost Coach True, it was a simple call, and we had a conversation before, and I said, "You ready to do this?" And he said, "Absolutely, coach. Let's go crush this thing together." And I also knew what that told our team. Yep, coach, you believe it. Everything we're doing on that first floor, everything we're doing on that first floor, you believe in and you trust in it, that you were able to elevate somebody. And it's no different than, I think sometimes um, quarterbacks get too much credit. I think sometimes coaches get too much credit. I think True Carroll would tell you sometimes strength coaches get too much credit. It's all of us. It's that whole first floor that came up with a plan that I presented to them to say, let's go 9 weeks of winter conditioning. Let's cut back on football. And it was all those guys that decided, here's the plan, and let's go implement the plan. No different than on a defense or offensive scheme. It's very similar downstairs in the strength and conditioning area. And I was so excited. And I hope that when our guys come here, they feel like, man, if I do a good enough job and we keep having success, coach isn't going to have to go outside. He's going to stay in house.
When you're looking for a hire, whether it's internal or external, what are the first things that, what buttons need to be pushed for you to kind of accelerate the process?
What's your family situation?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably first and foremost. Are you in a position that you're mobile enough to move a wife, mobile enough to move young kids, older kids? High school is hard. I think that's because if you just go and say, "Hey, I'm going to hire Fitz as this strength coach," and your wife's not on board or your kids aren't on board, it's going to be a miserable experience because it's just you have to have that family involved. And so that's probably the first thing is what's your family think about the move to Manhattan? What's your daughter think about the move to Manhattan? Hey, it's gonna be tough, coach, but I'm gonna have that conversation. Okay. We've got some kids at that age. Maybe they can talk to one of those kids
Mm-hmm.
at that age. Um, our wives have been around here. We do a lot of different things together as a wives group. What wife can I have your wife speak to find out if this is the right fit? That's the first and foremost thing. And then how do you motivate kids? How do you motivate guys? And in this new world of
Yeah.
of the fact that if it's a strength guy, it's pretty simple. I just told the kid, or Joe Klanderman told the kid, you're now the backup. You're not the starter anymore. And now you got to go and lift. Well, you're going to be the one that has to deal with that kid. How are you going to build him back up? How are you going to be the guy to pull it out of him to say, we're going to get that spot back? Because you're not going to tell me who we're playing on offense or defense, just like I'm not going to tell the strength coach how many sets we should do on the cleans today. But you've got to have that relationship to say, man, we're going to get this job back. You know what? We're going to attack that adversity and become better because of the adversity we just faced. I think the family piece is important, and then how you motivate guys. You're at this level for a reason, as far as the schematics, the technology,
Mm-hmm.
technical side of things, and do you have great energy? I think that's something that I know that everybody has it. There's some days that I know you don't feel as good as you do other days. And there's some days I go out that practice field, I'm like, I better kick myself in the butt a little bit. I'm kind of friggin' down right now. I'm just whatever. And I had a few of those days late last fall when I was dealing with some personal stuff. And it was, Ben Newman talking to him saying, you know what? Somehow, some way we got to leave this stuff at the office and you got to go and work and you got to go and attack and believe in these kids and give them the belief and the confidence that they're going to be successful on Saturday. We all have that, and all have those days. You got to surround yourself with a bunch of people that not afraid to challenge you. Connor Riley was not afraid to challenge me. I loved it. Van Malone's not afraid to challenge me. I need that. Clint Brown's not afraid to challenge me. And they do it in a way where, hey, coach, how can I help? Take something off your plate because I can tell something's going on. Steve Standard probably reads me as well as anybody as our linebacker coach because I've been around him so long. He'll come in and say, coach, you doing okay? Because there's something not right there. So.
Well, you've hired good people. I've noticed that. I mean, everyone I deal with that you've hired is just a good person. You know, I always say, do I want to have a beer with this person? Which means, do I want to just spend any time with them externally?
Yep.
Or is it just a work thing, you know, which a lot of coaches are. A lot of, you know, I don't want to be around them. But I've noticed this with every one of your people you bring in. You may not realize this. You're identifying personality traits just incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
I think you ran into it with the locker room, and now you do it better with players, you know, over the pandemic era. It's not easy to do, man. It's not.
No.
A lot of egos.
Well, and you got to put your ego aside, and you got to talk to some players down there. And I have the utmost faith in our players, and the utmost trust because they've earned that trust. And hopefully I've earned that trust with them in the fact that I'll have their back. But I visit with guys a lot asking them about personnel, asking them about I'm not going to tell them, hey, who should I hire, this guy or this guy? But how was that experience? You know, who's the guy down here you can't lose? You know, I think it's important that you empower people. I think you got to empower assistants. Assistants have to empower players.
Yep.
And as the head coach, you've got to empower the leaders to let them lead and have their back when they do lead.
That's 100% true. And we all need our Connor Riley or Steve Standard. When they ask us how we're doing, we tell them the truth.
Yeah.
But I'm also a believer in my journey here that when people ask me how I'm doing, it could be a really bad day. And you know what the answer is? I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. And I find that essentially lying to yourself works. Pretty soon you're like, hey, I'm having a good day. And you're like, I wasn't. What happened?
Yeah.
But it's all about mindset.
But don't you feel like when that is said to you and you know you're putting out some kind of aura or vibe that, okay, that person asked me that for a reason. You're right. I'm going to talk myself into having a good day, but now I got to address it myself.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it. Why am I fretting over things I can't correct in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can worry about when I can correct it. Or, you know, honestly, if you just sit around and I've got cancer, that was the biggest thing with the cancer thing is people don't grasp this. You've got this thing inside of you.
Yeah.
It's not like you have a skin lesion or something. It's doing stuff inside of you. And that's really unsettling.
Yeah.
But eventually you got to say, well, I can't beat it by telling it to go away.
Yeah.
I'm in charge of my emotions and trying to be upbeat and, you know, make a lot of jokes.
And the roster stuff was where I was at.
Right.
I cannot control this, but I've got to act on it. And that's where it's really hard. When you don't believe in what you're doing, you don't believe in the fact that we're moving kids on, and I don't. But it's the same thing with some of the talks I have with donors on NIL and revenue sharing. Okay, maybe we don't agree with it. But guys, this is where we're at now.
It's reality.
This is what we got to do.
I don't agree with cancer. I'm opposed to it.
You should be. I'm opposed to it as well.
So, Coach, I appreciate it. I know you didn't exactly have a free hour, but you gave me a free hour with assistance. But it's great. I love that you're at Kansas State. You're a perfect fit. Not as a football coach. I mean, you are, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about culturally, how our outlook. You're very Midwestern, and of course you are from Iowa. And I appreciate all you brought to the community. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Fitz. It's hard to believe it's going to be year 7.
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I was looking at something I did and the other day, and I'm like, hold on, that was 10 years ago. What the?
Yeah.
What? It's crazy. But hang in there, buddy.
We'll do it.
We'll be in Ireland soon.
Yep. Can't wait to see you in Dublin.
And then
maybe we can share a Guinness.
You won't have time for that. Plus, I may not. I might be on my 9th Guinness and not know where my pants are. So nobody wants to be around that. That'd be bad.
I definitely don't want to be around you if you're going to do that.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks.
He's such a good dude. I mean, I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed talking to him all the time. If you've ever listened to a K-State press conference, he gives me a lot of crap, and it's warranted often. But we have a good relationship. He's a good man, and I think Kansas State fans are really fortunate to have him as head coach. It could not have been easy to take over for Bill Snyder, but he's done a pretty dang good job at 48-28 overall. He's gone to bowl games 5 of 6 seasons. Yeah, the last 3 seasons have been pretty good, but I just feel like Chris Klieman's got more in the tank. There's a lot more coming, even though his job has changed an awful lot. We've got big plans for season 6 of Life of Fitz, too. We got some great guests lined up for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and they'll be debuting every Monday right here on the Go PowerCat YouTube channel and at gopowercat.com. If you're not subscribing to our website, please consider doing so. If you're not a fan of Kansas State, go find your school on the 24/7 Sports Network and give them a subscription. And until we see you next week, men, remember, let's change it to 45 and over. Ask your doctor to score your PSA. The prostate-specific antigen score is the best way to detect early onset of prostate cancer. I didn't get mine in time, but I'm going to make sure a lot of you don't suffer the same fate. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you real soon. I appreciate you listening to this week's edition of Life of Fitz. And thank you to all the great people at Blueville Nursery for sponsoring our show. This has been a Spirit Street production.